Basically, it honestly started as just a way to get in front of the clientele, the people that I wanted to work with. Is that there's something very different about going to somebody or reaching out to somebody or cold calling or cold emailing or whatever it is and saying, hey, I would love to jump on a Zoom call, or hey, I would love to have a coffee meeting. Like, people generally speaking have a little bit of resistance to that. The first thing that probably comes to your mind is, what are you trying to sell me? What are you trying to pitch me? Versus if you reach out to somebody and you go, hey, I would love to have you on my podcast show so that you can share your story and I can promote you to my audience. That's a very, very different conversation. That's a very, very different ask, right? And so that's how it started, was just that opportunity to start having the conversations that with the people that I already wanted to work with, which are like health coaches like on the show, or other healthcare professionals or fitness professionals. Those were the people that I wanted to get in front of. And so it was a great way to start building that network.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. Thank you so much for joining me as always. Today we have a really, really awesome guest that we linked up over LinkedIn actually. And let me actually backtrack a bit, because now that I'm looking at it, I think I made a big mistake as far as putting this podcast out pretty much the day before I have a shared masterclass with the one and only Haley Rowe. And the reason I just thought about this and to put it in this episode is because of the LinkedIn component. I'm going to go on with Haley and we're going to talk about how to build podcasts. It's kind of in conjunction with my course and what she's doing with LinkedIn as well. And she's really utilizing LinkedIn to get leads and getting people to actually listen to podcasts and have podcasts grow on LinkedIn. So it's going to be something that's going to be amazing. It's really, unfortunately, so right up to the wire, right? Where this is going to be coming out tomorrow. So I know that a lot of people who subscribe end up listening same day. So there's a chance that you are listening to it. Just shoot me a quick email. We'll get right back to you, give you the links to that Zoom live, and it's really worth it. But even if you do miss it, we do have a recording of it. It's actually also going to be a supplemental part of my course. Haley was really, really gracious enough to just add all this exclusive content to my course regarding this topic. So I really appreciate her for doing that. And yeah, sorry for the late notice, but it's going to be available replay and of course in the course itself. But today's guest, speaking of podcasting and really someone who's killing it out there, and I think it's such perfect timing because of the LinkedIn and podcast connection, is Corey Hiben. And Corey and I met on LinkedIn and we really just hit it off right away. It was really just something where we saw that we were both doing podcasting and really had a lot in common, and the desire to grow podcasts to reach more and more people was something that we shared. So I invited him on the show to just break it down. And what he's doing as a podcaster is really cool, because he really is taking advantage of the tremendous value in having a local podcast. And he's in Texas. He's really locking down the market of wellness professionals, having them all on the show and really building a network in that community. And that's really what I wanted to share. So a podcast doesn't have to be something that's internationally known to be successful. It could be local and have a powerful effect on the community and really have a successful following. So that's why I wanted to share Corey, who just breaks it down, a couple other things that really resonate with you. And I'm sure that's going to be something that you appreciate. So always leave a rating and review on iTunes. It continuously allows me to get awesome guests like Corey. So let's jump into the show. Hey, Corey, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing great, man. It's a little cool here in Austin, but glad to be here.
What's cool in Austin? I'm in New York.
Oh, all right. I'm from Minnesota, so I know a thing or two about cold as well. But yeah, I've definitely gotten softer since living here. I'll be the first to admit that.
Oh, it's all good, man. Yeah, so I can't complain. This Saturday that just passed was actually 75. We're recording this in mid-November, and that's great to be that warm this close to winter. So I'm not complaining. So
that's shirt pop weather, man. That's
Yeah.
where you pop the shirt off.
You know it, you know it. So Corey, we met over LinkedIn and I really felt like a connection with you regarding a lot of different things, but primarily like how we operate the podcast. And I know that's one of your passions as well. And you do have a variety of other things that you do in this space. But I just want to go to your origin story. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself so they can get to know you better.
Yeah, and first and foremost, I just appreciate you bringing me on. I totally agree. I feel like we're super aligned to just like what we're doing and where our passions lie, and so I'm excited to just join you here today and hopefully add some value to everybody. But just so people understand me, so I used to be really in the fitness and the healthcare industry. I used to work as a personal trainer. I also used to work in healthcare as an occupational therapist, and through both of those ventures, I was responsible for my own marketing. And admittedly, so at the time, I was terrible. I was honestly horrible at it. I was taking the classic approach that I think most people do of spray and pray and try all the things and try to figure out how I could just get clients or customers or people to start working with me. And through a lot of pain and frustration and struggle, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, is that it just doesn't work, especially if you're trying to do it in the digital world, is that you're just competing with so many people that it's just really, really hard to cut through that noise. And really through that own personal challenge and struggle of like trying to figure out how to get my own customers and clients and patients when I was working in healthcare, is that I started to find my stride in that transition of realizing like, okay, I'm okay at treating patients or seeing clients. I'll be honest. It wasn't like really my sweet spot. Where I've started to thrive was actually getting people in the door and figuring out the business and marketing side of those industries. And fast forward that a little bit, and like that's kind of where I sit today, is in that nice middle ground of I understand what it's like to work with a patient or to work with a client or to work with a customer, while also knowing how to get in the door or get them in the door and get them to start working with you. Because like those are two completely different things, right? It's one thing to be a really, really good health coach or practitioner or personal trainer or whatever it is in that space and really know how to get somebody a transformation. It's something completely different to understand the marketing and business side and the sales and all the other things that go into it, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point in this episode. But yeah, that's really what I do today. And then also as well, I'm also a podcast host just like yourself and just love talking to similar people that you do. So
No,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I got from your origin story is that you weren't good at marketing to begin with, and now you are very good, which is very inspiring because that means that we have hope. It's something that, again, a lot of people get really, really concerned because they just aren't necessarily good in the business component, but this is a skill that you can develop. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, no question. And just to go off of that too, it's like really understanding thyself, right? I realized as working as a trainer and also in healthcare is that I enjoyed working with clients and patients, but I loved working with other practitioners in terms of like other trainers and other occupational therapists and physical therapists and health coaches. Like I really, really, really enjoyed working with those people. And yeah, you're right. I was freaking horrible for a long time to begin with. And like anything in life is that the obstacle becomes the way, right? Is like
Yeah.
as you struggle through things and figure out things and have to learn things, is that I say this a lot on my own episode or my own podcast as well, is that we are always best positioned to serve the person we once were. And so basically, whatever challenges or struggles that you've gone through, overcome, those are oftentimes the best people that you can help and serve. And so if you're a health coach and you're thinking about who I should serve, oftentimes that's a great place to start.
Yeah, they always say like, so who are you 5 years ago? That's probably something that you should tap into and spread out and actually because you probably mastered that at that point and can help someone in a similar situation. So now let's jump into our passion, which is these podcasts. So tell us about the Health Hustle and how you came about and what was the genesis of that?
Yeah, man. It's funny you say that. I literally just had that conversation with a buddy of mine here in Austin at the Capital Factory, which is like a startup incubator. But basically, it honestly started as just a way to get in front of the clientele, the people that I wanted to work with. Is that there's something very different about going to somebody or reaching out to somebody or cold calling or cold emailing or whatever it is and saying, hey, I would love to jump on a Zoom call, or hey, I would love to have a coffee meeting. Like people generally speaking have a little bit of resistance to that. The first thing that probably comes to your mind is, what are you trying to sell me? What are you trying to pitch me? Versus if you reach out to somebody and you go, hey, I would love to have you on my podcast show so that you can share your story and I can promote you to my audience. That's a very, very different conversation. That's a very, very different ask, right? And so that's how it started, was just that opportunity to start having the conversations that I already, with the people that I already wanted to work with, which are like health coaches like on the show, or other healthcare professionals or fitness professionals. Those were the people that I wanted to get in front of. And so it was a great way to start building that network. However, through that journey and through staying consistent and through going through those challenges and struggles of figuring out what it actually looks like and takes to produce a podcast show, it really started to just kind of grow into its own entity and its own beast. And it started turning into something that I really, really enjoyed and I really had a lot of fun with. And I really appreciated the people that came on the show. And I really appreciated like getting their content out and talking about them and sharing their stories and all those amazing one-on-one conversations with people. I've been told my entire life, and I never realized it till I started the podcast show, that although on this episode, obviously probably doing most of the talking, is that one of my favorite things in the world is really listening to people and hearing their stories and figuring out what makes them tick. I'm a nerd for behavioral science and why we do the things that we do. And so to be able to do that as part of my day-to-day work of listening to people and distilling those stories, it's my favorite thing in the world. And so now today where I sit with it is, yes, it's still something that continues to drive attention and traffic. I think that everybody should have some core piece of content, which is obviously, I'm sure, something we'll get into this episode. But now it's really just kind of its own animal. And I'm kind of seeing where that goes in terms of deals and sponsorships and everything else that comes with it. But yeah, man, I love it. I'm sure you do too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is just an amazing opportunity to speak to people like yourself, similar journeys, interested in just kind of picking people's brain. Just I always say it's a selfish component to my shows, maybe like 15-20%. I always get my 15 and 20% of my own questions answered. So one of the things that I really liked about your show, because I think that if we just switched out our shows, it'd probably be the exact same show, which is very interesting. But you do have a unique tactic to how you help other health coaches and business people get their content out, market stuff for them. Why did you choose to be so micro niche and local? How did that decision come about?
You've obviously done your research, my friend. Yeah, so phenomenal question. So I'm going to give a quick shout out to, there's a newsletter / podcast / community called The Tilt. And essentially what it is it helps people turn from content creators to content entrepreneurs. They're phenomenal. Joe Polizzi's the guy that runs it. They're great. I definitely got to shout them out because I've got so much value from them. And so I'm just paying it back. And so one of the things of that, like the title implies, is that what helps you stand out in the world of content, like I touched on earlier, of how we can get so easily lost in the noise, is you have to have some sort of angle. You have to have some sort of tilt, right? Every piece of content starts with one thing, is knowing who your audience is, which is great. And so for any of the health coaches listening to this, I'm sure you probably know who the person is that you ideally like to work with. I'm sure that's been pounded down your throat. But then the second piece that I wouldn't say as many people talk about is having a unique perspective or a unique tilt or a unique way of approaching that topic. Because I'm sure a lot of people are going after a specific niche or a specific demographic, which is fine, but there's something unique that you can do about it. And so that was the learning lesson for me, which was, again, another pain and struggle for me, is when I first started my podcast show, I was talking to basically like every health coach and personal trainer and fitness professional, which you could imagine there's millions of them. There's just so many of them that there was no way I was going to cut through the noise, until my mentor at the time told me to check out this podcast of some like middle of nowhere town, Alabama, that was basically like real estate for sake of, I don't remember the town name, like Birmingham, Alabama or something, right? Like middle of nowhere town. But from a podcast and content standpoint, he was crushing it. And the reason he was crushing it is because he was the only person in that town talking about that. Right. And so it was his tilt. It was his angle. And so I realized here in Austin, as crazy as it is, because this town has a thriving health and fitness community, it's honestly one of the biggest I've ever seen. There was nobody else, and there still is nobody else taking the angle that I'm taking. There's nobody else talking to health and fitness professionals, business owners specifically in Austin, Texas. And so that I realized that there was an opening. I realized there's a tilt that I could take advantage of. And so I did. And it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made, because not only does it allow me to have a unique angle on the population of the people that I'm talking to, it's also got me connected with so many amazing people here in town and continues to spread the word about it, specifically here in town. And so I don't know that I'll ever be like the biggest podcast show ever, but I can promise you that here in Austin, Texas, that I am the best and the worst podcast on that topic, because I'm the only one talking about that topic. And so anyone else listening to the show, like, that's a really important point to hit, is just like find that unique angle. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I can only imagine how much of a celebrity you are in that area just because of that. I wanted to get into a little bit about what are the perks of that besides your business and one of the, the connections and such. I mean, I'm sure that you could walk into any gym in the world and get a free workout and do it. Like, you must be the Puff Daddy of Austin.
Yeah, it was weird the first time I'm not famous. I don't want anybody to think that. I'm not naive enough to think that like I'm this like celebrity or anything. So I appreciate the compliment, but at the same time, like, you're sort of right, but at the same time, I don't want to like give that impression, because like I'm just some guy on a microphone that just talks about stuff in town. But really though, like, to your point, it was funny the first time I did ever get recognized. If anyone knows the area, there's a really popular park here. It's called Zilker. I was walking around it one day and some girl comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, you're Corey." And I was like, yeah. And it's like, "Do I know you?" She's like, "No, like, I listen to your show and I follow your stuff and whatever." And we started talking back and forth, and it was really great to meet her. And it was like really one of those like, ooh, like ego bump moments, like super cool. And at the same time though, to really answer your point though, you're right that it has led to other awesome, amazing things that I didn't think would happen. Like, you're right, I can go to most gyms at this point now. She actually was connected with another company here in town that does food delivery to your door of like all whole foods, organically, locally raised food products. And so like I got a bunch of like free food from the company that she works for, just because she knows me and follows me, and obviously as well she knew that I would talk about it like I am right now. Shout out to them. They're called Prep to Your Door. But like, I don't get any kickback for them, but if you're in Austin, they're great. But yeah, you're right, is like some of those like intertwined relationships and other opportunities that pop up just by putting yourself out there are unbelievable. Like, I can't stress that enough. Of anyone else, if you've even had an inkling of kind of starting to tell your story and put yourself out there, I promise you there's so many things that come from that you would never realize were possible just from doing that. And it doesn't even have to be a podcast, right? It could be videos, it could be a blog, it could be whatever your thing is. But like, don't underestimate the value of like people finding you and following along, and then how and what that could lead to.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a girl who does that locally in my town in White Plains, who just really just goes to every restaurant and just like she made her own like review site, and that's kind of
Oh,
what
she's a foodie.
Yeah, she's a foodie, and listen, foodies, they eat
Oh yeah,
basically
man.
free all over the place. And well, what you've been also do to parlay what you like the local market too is like you've been able to jump in on network events that have led to super opportunities for you just within meetups as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, through that really stemmed this love for community. Obviously, since I decided to focus on my local town, and anyone listening to this episode, like, don't feel like you have to pick your local town as your angle. Like, you can definitely do this online as well and build amazing and beautiful communities online if that's what you're into. Like, I'm sure there's online communities for, I always use this joke, but like cat sweaters, right? Like, if you're super into
Yeah.
cat sweaters, like, I'm sure you could find a bunch of people online and build a community around that.
Yeah.
But for me personally, because I was in the local community, that did give me the opportunity to also host events. And so, yeah, you're right. So every month we host events of people in that exact same position of other health and fitness entrepreneurs here in Austin, Texas, that come together and want to talk business and collaborate and work together. I also have the advantage of this town is super collaborative in that sense. And I will say though, like, just from a challenge standpoint, is that, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's super fun. Community is a huge piece for me, and I love the death out of it. But at the same time, I sometimes I feel really bad because like people, I sometimes I forget who I connect with, because I meet so many people through the podcasting and the show and networking and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And like there's been a few times where I was like, "Hey, like, nice to meet you," and they're like, "Oh, we've met before," and I'm like, "Oh man, like, damn," like, and I feel bad about it, right? Because like I want to remember everybody, but it's, I don't know, sometimes I don't. But so there's that little dark side to it, which is obviously minor in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it's been a blast to be able to host those events. And that is another one of those things too. Again, if anyone else in your town or anyone else listening to this, if like you've ever had that inkling to want to get connected with the community for a topic that you're super interested in, you're not, highly recommend it. And if it doesn't exist, then create it. Because that's honestly how mine started, was that I was looking for that local community on that same topic. Again, as all of us, anyone listening to the show, I'm sure is a business owner or entrepreneurially minded, is that if it doesn't exist, then create it, right? And that's essentially what I did. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of challenge with it. There were times where nobody showed up. When I first started it, I was trying to do like these like Sunday walks, and people didn't even like show up, and it was just me, or it was just one other person. And like, it hurts, man. Like it was kind of painful. I can say now that I've been doing it consistently for a while. I mean, the last one we had probably, I don't know, 40 people that showed up, and that's been pretty consistent ever since.
Mhm.
But don't like underestimate like the value in it. And one, too, is like pick the things that you can stay consistent with. I think is the big lesson there, is that I stepped into it knowing like, okay, even if nobody shows up, whatever, I'm going to hang out and have a beer or whatever, like whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I stuck with it, because it's grown into something much larger again than I've expected. And even like down the road, I've considered it and turning it into like a community thing of like, we have an inner circle of paid members that like we regularly meet weekly as opposed to monthly, and like all the other things that could come from it. So yeah, man, it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely wanted to have you on just to reinforce that idea, because I think that a lot of people who want to do a podcast, they thinking Joe Rogan, and it's not necessarily Joe Rogan. Not saying that me and you aren't going to get there one day, but it's a beautiful thing that you've created a podcast that's local and profitable for you in so many different ways. And that's why it's like I really wanted to get you in front of my audience, just so they can realize it doesn't have to be something that is too big. And I don't mean to say disrespect, because I think I might grow niched out too, in that I'm only talking to health coaches who are really starting out in their space. So there's a value to that, and that we've been able to create communities around those two things, which I think I really wanted to emphasize by having you on.
Yeah, I think people love to compare to the 1% in all endeavors of life, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's podcasting or a business or your physique or a family or whatever, is that we compare ourselves to the 1%, which is really unfortunate, because then that scares people away of actually wanting to pursue it themselves. I think a really good reminder for me, and I think about it all the time, is that like I recognize this probably like 2 or 3 years ago, in that when I was actually working in healthcare, where there were certain clients where I worked with that were getting better, and I was more or getting better faster, and I was more engaged with them, and I enjoyed looking forward to them coming in the clinic. And there were other people that I was working with that like really, they were soul sucking, and I did not look forward to it, and it was a challenge, and they wouldn't get better that fast. And what it taught me in that moment was that I'm not for everybody, and everyone's not for me, and I'm not going to jive with everybody. And like, that's just a fact of life. And so like, no matter what it is that you create or put yourself out there, people are going to judge you. That's a fact of life, and they're not going to like it. And that's okay, right? Is that you're not looking to please everybody, nor would you want to please everybody, nor would you even possibly be able to please everybody. And that's not the job. The job is to show up and add value to the people that you do want to hang out with and do spend time with. And that's why I create the show. And that's why I decided to lean into Austin, was because I realized I love the people of this town, and I love pouring into the community, and I love supporting those people. And so for me, regardless of what any of the other people say or think or do, and there are for sure people out there that are haters, I don't
Mhm.
really care, because like
Right.
it's not for them, and that's totally fine. I'm totally cool with that.
Were you always okay with that?
No. No, definitely not. And that's a phenomenal point, is that um there's there's some growing pains to that, right? There's some finding your voice, there's some getting some kickbacks, there's some dealing with rejections that come with that. I think it's all inevitable of anybody who's ever wanted to pursue or do their own thing, though, whether it's a podcast show or even being a health coach, is that there is that stage where you have to kind of, as they say, throw spaghetti at the wall and try stuff until you realize, like, okay, these aren't my people. I mean, even when I was working in healthcare, right, is that I worked with all sorts of different types of people, right? And I was like trying to please everybody. It was in my bones to try to help and serve people, especially as an occupational therapist, where like if you meet anybody who's an OT, or if you know an OT, you know they're giving people, they're kind people, and they want to help everybody. And that was totally me. I was trying to serve everybody. And but nobody was really winning in that scenario. They weren't winning, I wasn't winning. Like unless it's a win-win scenario, it's probably not worth your energy, honestly. And that's why it's so important to know who you work with, but more importantly, who you don't work with.
No, I agree. I agree. I still struggle with it myself. I definitely have identified myself as a people pleaser to a great extent, and the rejection parts of things were very difficult to overcome. But like you said, as you grow and go through the growing pains of that, and just really understanding that it's necessary, it's some of that stuff is just something that and if you want to be successful, you just got to get past it. I mean, that's got to just drive you.
Yeah, and if you're not okay with that, then maybe it's not for you. Like
Yeah.
that's a super hard truth for people too. And like that's something I always try to stress as well, is that I love talking about business and entrepreneurship and doing your own thing and starting a podcast and all these things. And I love talking about it because I'm super passionate about it because I do it. But at the same time too, I never want to slam people who decide not to, or who opt out of that, because like it's know thyself, I think, is the most important lesson in all of this, right? Is like I have buddies who they're cool working their job at their 9 to 5 and whatever, and they love it and it's great because they're able to step away and disconnect from it, and that's their personality type, because then they want to go home and spend time with their wife or kids or whatever it is. I just know my nature well enough to know that I wouldn't be super happy in that scenario. And
Yeah.
it's nothing against me. It's nothing against them. It's just like know thyself. And so like I think that's really important for people to recognize as well, is that like if you feel like it's just too hard and overwhelming and you'd rather just not do it, then maybe you shouldn't. Like don't judge yourself for it. Just know yourself, right?
Oh yeah, and that's just like any of these mediums and platforms out there. If you don't want to be on Facebook, don't be on Facebook. If you don't want a
Exactly.
YouTube channel, don't get a YouTube channel.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm like I believe that I found this lane for a reason, and I definitely enjoy it. It's like I wouldn't have been doing it for this long if I didn't. So I also wanted to just bring up the fact that obviously we've touched on some perks, but you do have a big business on the, I don't want to say on the side, but it's kind of morphed into something that you have leveraged your podcast for, because you're big time into web design, big time into funnels, really got busy with the marketing stuff of things. So talk about that and how the podcast really promotes that side of your business as well.
Yeah, I think you framed it perfectly. Of it's not something that I put out into the forefront. The podcast show is really how I really put myself out there into the world, and how I would say most people know me. I kind of leave the marketing agency side and the website design and development as sort of something that people kind of discover on their own as they start to find out more about me. I've found that it's just allowed me to not feel stressed out about having to try to find new clients and customers for that piece of the business that I offer. But you're right, it is a big part of the work that I do, and something that continues to put money in my pocket, essentially, is website design and development, specifically for people in that industry. And so I'm a huge believer in what's called solarpreneurship. And it's kind of a coin that's been recently growing by a few other people on social media platforms. But really what it is that it's your ability now, more so than ever before in human history, to be able to create, in most cases, what most people would want, a six-figure business, which is enough to obviously survive, and to do it without having to hire any employees. And I would say most people are pretty attracted to that lifestyle, generally speaking, if you are starting a business, because anyone can tell you managing people is really hard, and it's not that fun for most people. And so to be able to create a business solo is one of the greatest things ever in the modern day age. And you do it with no code platforms, and you do it by having certain systems and project management systems, and just like having really good systems in place. And so to circle all the way back to your question about kind of the agency piece of it, that is my way of doing that, is that is a service. And as I continue to get better at it, could turn into consulting as well. that I can offer people without really having to hire anyone because I have the tools now to be able to do it. And so for anybody else out there, whether you're a health coach or you want to get into the content creating game, both of those are honestly phenomenal options for being able to create that solo business, because within those you can do courses, you could get paid from doing YouTube videos or podcast sponsorships or consulting, or there's a myriad of ways that you can take that skill set and allow it to replicate itself without having to hire employees on to do more of the work, right? If I wanted to build a full scale marketing agency, that would require me to hire people. That would require me to hire designers and project managers and everything else that goes into building an entire marketing team. I don't want to do that because I don't want to manage those people. So instead, I use this other angle to be able to create content around the topics that I want to talk about, and then also use no code tools to essentially build websites, design and development, and all the things that go into essentially a funnel. And that's why I've picked such a specific audience of health and fitness professionals, because those are the people that I know that I can get really good results for, and they'll come back again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very business savvy. So were you always good at that part of business?
Man, are you kidding me? I checked, dude. Oh my gosh. That is like such a, okay. So I would say I was the most classic, like checkbox person you'd ever met in your entire life. Of you go to school, you go to college, you get the degree, you get out of college, you get a job, you work your 9 to 5. And then I think I reached the point where most people, I feel like in today's society, reach, and they're like, man, not only am I not making even remotely as much money as I was hoping to make, I'm not excited to go to work. I don't like the people that I work with half the time. I'm getting told what I have to do. This sucks, right? And I think most people get caught in that trap of just following the checkbox and following what society told them to do because it was easy and it was convenient and it was the most comfortable way to get to where they thought that they wanted to be. And then they got there just like I did. And I was like, man, this is dumb. This is terrible. What did I do? And how did I get tricked into this essentially? Right. And so it honestly, the change didn't happen for me. I'll never forget it. The biggest change happened when the pain of staying the same where I was at that time became greater than the fear of the unknown. And what I mean by that is that if I was to stay where I was, I knew I would continue to hate it. I knew I was going to continue to be unhappy. I knew I was going to continue to struggle and not really feel like I was adding value to the world or really helping people or really making a difference or really having an impact or really even having control over something as basic of like how much income or how hard I wanted to work and to be able to make more income. Like those things were so out of my control. It was really frustrating and challenging for me. And it reached that point where I was like, okay, the fear of the unknown of to do this side hustle, start my own thing, start a business, whatever it is, became less than the actual pain of staying where I was. And at the time, man, I don't talk about this a lot, but like I fully thought I was actually going to get into the tech industry, which is kind of how I got into the marketing side of things. I have a background in computer programming. My original degree was actually in computer science. So I'm pretty tech savvy from that standpoint. And I probably applied to, I kid you not, over like 100 tech companies trying to find a way that I could kind of get away from the healthcare industry and the rat race of what that is. If anyone's ever worked in healthcare, they know what a terrible place that is. And so I applied to probably 100 companies. None of them hired me. They all sent me the same template email back. They basically said, you don't have enough experience. We can't hire you, yada, yada. And I read a book at that time. I read a lot, but the one that really punched me in the gut, is called Choose Yourself by James Altucher. And I'm a big believer in that. It's not so much the books that are amazing, it's the right book at the right time that's amazing. And that was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment of my life of getting rejected by 100 different emails and trying to get out of this position in healthcare, where I realized that I needed to choose myself, because what I was doing was I was looking for permission to do the things that I wanted to do. Right. I wanted to get into the marketing industry or the tech industry at that time, and nobody was letting me in. So I was like, screw it, I'll start myself. And so that's what I did. Literally, the very first client I ever worked with was a health coach. And she was just like in my local town. I pinged her on email or some sort of cold email. And I was literally like, hey, I saw her website. I saw that I could improve it in a lot of ways. I think a lot of health coaches struggle with the tech side of things. Nothing against health coaches, but I think they really struggle with a lot of the tech side of things. And I was like, hey, I could totally make some changes and some improvements to your site that would get you some more clients or customers. I'll do it totally for free. And she's like, what? Like, you'll do it for free? I was like, yep, totally. I'm just interested in this relationship. I just want to help you out and just want to serve you. And so she gave me access. At the time, it was a Wix site, is what she was working on. I don't work with a lot of Wix sites these days. I know a lot of people do, but at the time, and so I went into her Wix site, I fixed it up, got her some more leads, made it look better, made it look prettier. And I didn't even realize it, but she was actually like a quote unquote health coach for health coaches. So she had this huge network of other health coaches in her community. And so she started pulling me into some of her webinars and her Zoom calls, and was basically like, hey, like, here's Corey. If you need help with any of your tech stuff, he can help you out. Started growing into other relationships, started helping other health coaches. And that was really the genesis of how I was able to quote unquote choose myself and do my own thing. And now obviously here we are today having this conversation. But no, man, I never in any way, shape, or form thought I was going to do my own thing. It took a lot of pain for me to get to that point where I was like, maybe I should. And I honestly can tell you, I have zero regrets, and I would rather live in a box probably than go back to working for somebody else again. So,
well, listen, thank you so much for sharing that. That's very, very inspirational. And I think a lot of us are going through that journey. We definitely have to take advantage of choosing ourselves and really just go for what we really want to do. It's that pain point. You're right. I mean, it's sometimes we just are able to stay stuck in that reality for too long a lot of the times, but glad you made it out and they are doing so well with it too. And that's interesting too, that you took advantage of the background that you had, and it's really just a perfect mesh of two opportunities with the podcast and your other skill set that you had that just really provides you with a way to sustain the podcast and going forward. So that's really a good thing. So I think to end the show, I just wanted to see what's your ultimate goal in this space. I want to hear what you think is going to happen in your world 4 or 5 years from now.
Be the next Joe Rogan. No, I'm just kidding.
Nah,
no, I love Joe Rogan. I do. He's actually here in Austin, but he's great. There's a lot of podcast guys that I follow. So for me, the long play, honestly, is like, the thing that drives me on a day in and day out basis is I've realized that I just enjoy doing cool things with interesting people. Mm-hmm. And what that looks like, I know will continue to evolve, because how quickly things change, it's outrageous now. Like, all of the things that we think we're going to be doing in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, very unlikely. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to continue to evolve and adapt. But I know at the root of it and at the core of it is the communities, the relationships, the people, the doing interesting things, the having new ideas. Like, those are the things that continue to drive me. And because I always think about, like, okay, let's say I could retire. I'm a multimillionaire. What would I do? And when I think about what I would do in those moments, I wouldn't really change much. Yeah, is what I mean by that. Is that I enjoy hosting the meetup groups with people here in town. I love going to community workout events. I like bringing people onto the podcast show. I like helping people with their businesses and their marketing. I wouldn't really change too much of it. Honestly, if I was to change any of it, it would maybe be having a little bit more of a financial buffer to be able to step away from things and not feel like I should be working. That would be one thing I would change. And if I had to guess what my next 5 years would be looking like, it would probably just be doing the podcast show 100% of the time as that main source of income to kind of support my lifestyle. Right. But that's my best guess on what is going to be a very unpredictable 5 to 10 years.
Well, I love that answer, because I think I definitely mirror that, and just having the opportunity to continuously do that. I think I'll have a podcast or some sort of whatever futuristic podcasts look like for the rest of my life, and just like continuously talking to good people and putting out positive energy into the world in some format. I think that's really what I would always think I would want to do forever. And that's really what it would be. Like you said, being financially successful enough to continuously do that. And it was just like you're doing right now is a great blueprint to kind of have two lanes where both of them are kind of supporting each other. And that's a damn good business model, if you ask me either way. So I think that you're going to be totally fine. And I look forward to all the stuff that you're going to be doing in the future.
I appreciate that, man. And honestly, I just want to thank you so much for bringing me on and let me talk to some of your audience and all the fellow health coaches out there. I love you guys. That's where I started my journey. And so I appreciate every one of you.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure there's someone in Austin listening right now, and they probably know exactly who they're probably listening because of you. So I thank you for being on my show. So with that, can you just give us your social media handles, your website, everything we can do to keep up with you, and of course, how to listen to your podcast and catch all the new and updated information? You're basically not my rival at this point, so you're going to probably be a compliment to a lot of the stuff that we talk about on this show. So, give us all that info.
Yeah, man, I'm a huge believer, and there's always room at the table, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. Both of them you can find my name, Corey Hiben. It's spelled like hi Ben, how you doing? That's kind of a fun side story, actually. I think there used to be 2 B's in my last name, but when my grandpa went to the war, they actually messed up his spelling, and they've never changed it back since. So kind of crazy. You'll probably find almost nobody with my last name for that reason. But podcast show is called The Health Hustle Austin, Texas. Definitely, yeah, if you do happen to check it out, or even if you're local in the area and you know of somebody that'd be a good guest, or you're interested in checking it out, definitely ping me, let me know. I love getting feedback, just like you, Omar. I'm always trying to improve the show and bring more value to the audience. And so, yeah, if anybody listens and checks it out and has good ideas, let me know. I'd love that.
Awesome. So, Corey, thanks again for jumping on the show. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Likewise.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.